A light rain was falling over the city the night Daniel decided to call. It wasn't a storm, the kind that makes a racket and sends people running for cover. It was a quiet rain, almost shy, sliding slowly down the windows. He stood in the middle of the living room with his phone in his hand, and there was something about that simple act of holding it that seemed to weigh far more than it should have. The living room was large, expensive, and empty in the particular way only the homes of lonely men can be. Beautiful furniture no one touched, a leather couch no one ever stretched out on to talk. Everything in the room said success, and at the same time, everything said absence. Daniel was 43 years old, owned a company that had grown beyond anything he'd once dreamed possible, and had a name people spoke with respect. But that night, with rain running down the glass, none of it could fill the silence. It had been 10 years since he'd heard her voice. 10 years since the day they sat on opposite sides of a cold office table and signed the papers. No yelling, no tears, just exhaustion. He remembered the scratch of the pen against the paper. He remembered the way she looked out the window after signing, as though she were already somewhere else. Most of all, he remembered saying nothing. He had simply let her walk away without giving her a single word worth remembering. Back then, Daniel had believed he was right. He had been certain she was the problem, that she was distant, that she didn't understand the pressure he was under at work. He spent his nights at the office and told himself he was doing it for them. Then he would come home to a dark apartment and find dinner already cold in the refrigerator. Little by little, they became two strangers sharing the same address. And when she finally told him she couldn't take it anymore, he felt a kind of angry relief, like someone whose oldest suspicion had finally been proven right. But time has a cruel way of showing you who was really wrong. Success came, it came fast, and it came generously. But every achievement arrived with no one to share it with. He would close an important deal and raise a glass alone, the clink of it sounding far too loud in the empty apartment. Slowly, he began to understand that Helena had never been distant. She had simply grown tired of waiting for a man who kept promising he would be there tomorrow, always tomorrow, and tomorrow never came. Through mutual acquaintances, he learned that she had moved to a smaller town near the ocean and opened a little flower shop. News of her reached him only occasionally, like leaves carried in by the wind from somewhere far away, and Daniel held on to every scrap of it without really knowing why. He never called, never wrote. He told himself he had no right to, and with a pride he had come to despise in himself, he also knew that calling her would mean admitting he had been wrong. But on that rainy night, something inside him had finally broken, all because of a box. That afternoon, while cleaning out a cabinet in his home office, Daniel had found an old shoebox tucked away on the back of a high shelf. Inside were things he didn't even remember saving. A movie ticket from their first date. A note Helena had slipped into his briefcase years ago, written in her hurried handwriting. "Good luck today, I believe in you." And a photograph of the two of them on the beach. Helena was laughing, her hair blown across her face by the wind, while Daniel hugged her from behind with the expression of a man who had the whole world in his arms and didn't know it yet. He sat on the floor of his office for a long time with that picture in his hand. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel angry. He missed her. It was a clean kind of longing, free of resentment, the kind that only comes when we finally stop defending ourselves from the truth about who we are. And right there, as rain began to fall outside, Daniel decided he was going to call her, not to complain, not to ask for anything. Just to say, 10 years too late, the one word he had never had the courage to say. Sorry, he still had her number saved. He had never deleted it, even after changing phones more times than he could remember. The number had followed him from one device to the next like some useless object he never used but couldn't bring himself to throw away. He stared at those digits for a long time, his heart beating like a teenager's. Daniel could negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, yet there he stood with cold hands because of a phone number on a screen. He called and waited. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. With every ring, something tightened inside Daniel. He almost hung up, almost gave himself an excuse. Almost decided it was too late, that she wouldn't want to hear from him, that the past belonged exactly where it was. His finger hovered over the red button. Then someone answered. But the voice on the other end wasn't Helena's. "Hello?" said a tiny voice. A child. A little girl, judging by the sound of her voice. It was small and sweet, a little uncertain, the kind of voice that still stumbled gently over words now and then. Daniel froze. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier. He opened his mouth, but for a moment no sound came out. "Hello," the girl repeated, this time sounding curious. "Is anybody there?" "Hi," Daniel finally managed, and even his own voice sounded strange to him. "Hi, sorry, I think I have the wrong number." "Who were you trying to call?" The girl asked with the disarming honesty only children have. Daniel hesitated. He could simply hang up. Maybe he should. But there was something in her voice that held him there. A warmth he couldn't explain, an impossible sense of familiarity. "I was trying to reach Helena," he said quietly. A woman named Helena. She owns a flower shop and lives near the ocean, but it's been a long time, so maybe the number... That's my mom! The girl cut in excitedly. Yeah, my mom has the flower shop. It's on Church Street. But she's not here right now. She went to deliver some flowers to Mrs. Marlene. I'm here with Aunt Rosa. Daniel's world stopped. My mom... He tightened his grip on the phone as though it might slip from his hand. Outside, the rain kept falling, indifferent. City lights trembled through the wet glass, and inside him, a question slowly began to form. A question he was afraid to ask, because he was even more afraid of the answer. Your mother, he began, but his voice broke. He cleared his throat. How many children does your mother have, sweetheart? Just me, the girl answered casually. It's just me and Mom. And Biscuit, my cat. But cats don't really count as children, right? Mom says he does, but I don't think so. Daniel closed his eyes. He was doing the math in his head. Simple, terrible math. 10 years. He calculated it once, and the answer made him dizzy. And you? How old are you? 9, the girl said proudly. I turned 10 in March. Mom already promised. She's making me a strawberry cake. That's my favorite. 9 years old, turning 10 in March. Daniel had to steady himself against the back of the couch. His legs no longer felt like his own. He did the math again. And again, searching for a mistake, searching for anything that would make what he was thinking impossible. But there was no mistake. They had separated 10 years ago. And if this girl was 9, if she was turning 10 in March, she had been conceived before it ended, before the papers, before the cold table and the pen scratching across the page. Helena had been pregnant when they separated, and she had never told him. Mister, are you still there? The girl asked after Daniel had been silent too long. Yeah, he managed, his throat tight. Yeah, I'm here. How do you know my mom? The question was innocent, but it landed on Daniel like a stone. How did he know Helena? How was he supposed to answer that question for a 9-year-old girl who had picked up her mother's phone on a rainy night? How could he explain that he knew Helena from an entire life he had thrown away? How could he tell her that maybe, just maybe, he knew something of this little girl too, even though he had never seen her face? I knew your mom a long time ago, he said, choosing every word carefully, like someone walking across thin ice. Before you were born. We were very close friends. Oh, the girl said. Then why did you never come visit us? That question, so simple and so completely without malice, hurt more than anything else. Then why did you never come visit us? Daniel's eyes burned. He hadn't cried in years. He had convinced himself he was made of steel, but in the darkness of his empty living room, a hot tear slid down his cheek. Because I was a fool, he said. And it was the truest thing he had said in a very long time. I was a fool, and I lost my way. Mom says when you get lost, you just have to go back to where you took the wrong turn, the girl said, repeating her mother's wisdom without understanding how much it weighed. She tells me that when I get upset because I messed something up. Daniel laughed. The laugh came out mixed with tears, strange and human. Your mother has always been very wise, he said. What's your name, sweetheart? Sofia, the girl replied. But Mom calls me Fifi, and sometimes she calls me sweetheart, but mostly when she's tired. Sofia. Daniel repeated the name softly to himself. He had never chosen it, had never stood beside her crib, had never woken in the middle of the night to the sound of her crying. And yet, hearing that name made something open inside his chest, like a door he hadn't even known was there. That's a beautiful name, he said. Do you know what it means? Wisdom, the girl answered proudly. But I still mess up long division. Everybody messes up division sometimes, Daniel said gently. And he wasn't talking about math anymore, even adults. There was a pause on the other end, the sound of little footsteps, a television playing somewhere in the background. Daniel imagined the house, a small, cozy living room, the smell of flowers drifting in from her mother's shop. That 9-year-old girl sitting in a chair too big for her, her feet swinging above the floor. And for the first time in 10 years, he felt an almost physical need to be somewhere, to see that girl. Mister, Sofia said suddenly, do you want me to tell Mom you called? Daniel hesitated. This was the moment. He could say no. He could claim it had all been a mistake, hang up and disappear again, leave everything exactly as it was. It would be easier. Daniel had always been good at choosing what was easier. He had built his entire life around that skill. But something in him had already changed. The shoebox, the photograph on the beach, the voice of that little girl, all of it had pushed him somewhere he could no longer turn back from. Yes, he said. Tell her that... His voice broke again. He took a deep breath. Tell her Daniel called. Daniel? Sofia repeated carefully, storing the name away. Okay, I'll remember. Daniel. Thank you, Fifi. The moment he said the nickname, Daniel startled himself with the intimacy of it. But Sofia didn't mind. Quite the opposite. She laughed, a bright, brief laugh that traveled through the phone line and lodged itself in his chest forever. You called me Fifi. Only Mom calls me that. And Aunt Rosa, and now you. I'm sorry, Daniel said. It just slipped out. No, I liked it, the girl said. You sound like a good person, Daniel. And that was it. That simple sentence, spoken by a child who had no idea who was on the other end of the phone, finally broke Daniel completely. You sound like a good person. For 10 years, he had convinced himself he was hard, selfish, the kind of man who had thrown away the only thing that truly mattered. And now a 9-year-old girl was telling him he sounded like a good person. Daniel cried, really cried, without trying to stop himself. Alone in the empty living room of his expensive apartment, with rain streaming down the windows. Daniel, are you crying? Sofia asked, worried. A little, he admitted, because somehow he couldn't lie to her. But they're happy tears. You know how sometimes you cry because you're happy? I know, the girl said seriously. Mom does that sometimes, when she watches me sleep and thinks I don't notice. Daniel pressed the phone against his face. He pictured Helena alone all those years, watching her daughter sleep and crying quietly. He imagined the courage it must have taken to raise a child on her own, turning flowers into a livelihood. He imagined the pride that had kept Helena from calling him, the same pride that had kept him from calling her. And with painful clarity, he understood that they were made from the same stubborn material. Maybe that was why they had loved each other, and maybe it was also why they had lost each other. Then he heard a door opening in the background. A woman's voice, tired and sweet at the same time, calling from somewhere farther away. Fifi? Who are you talking to, sweetheart? Daniel's heart began pounding. It was her. After 10 years, it was her voice. Older now, deeper, worn slightly by time, but unmistakable. The voice behind the words, I believe in you, on a note he had kept all those years. The voice he had let walk away without a fight. It's Daniel, Mom, Sofia called excitedly. He knew you before I was born. He sounds like a good person. Silence. A long, heavy silence, carrying 10 years inside it. Daniel heard footsteps approaching slowly. He heard Helena's breathing change. He imagined the color draining from her face, her hand going instinctively to her chest, her world stopping just as his had. Fifi? Helena said, her voice trembling slightly but carefully controlled. Go play in your room for a little while, okay? Mommy needs to talk on the phone. Oh, but I was talking to him, the girl protested. I know, sweetheart. You can talk to him again later. Go on. Daniel heard the small footsteps retreating, a quiet grumble from a disappointed little girl, then a door, and then silence. The kind of silence where the only thing you can hear is the breathing of two people who once meant everything to each other and no longer know where to begin. Daniel, Helena finally said. And the way she said his name held an entire lifetime. There was no anger, there was exhaustion, shock, and something softer beneath it all, something he didn't dare name. Hi, Helena, he said quietly. For a moment, neither of them spoke, Rain on his side of the call, and on hers, Daniel imagined the ocean breaking somewhere not too far away, the flower shop closed for the night, and a little girl waiting behind a door. It's been 10 years, Helena said. Why are you calling now? Daniel closed his eyes. He had rehearsed this so many times in his head, explanations, justifications, beautiful sentences, but now, with her real voice in his ear, all of it collapsed, and the only thing left was the one thing that mattered. Because I was wrong, he said. I was wrong about you, Helena. It took me 10 years to find the courage to say it, but I was wrong. You weren't distant. You weren't cold. You just got tired of waiting for me. And you had every right to. I called to say I'm sorry. That's all. I'm not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. Too late, but I understand. On the other end, Daniel heard Helena draw in a shaky breath. He realized she was crying silently, trying not to let him hear it. The same kind of crying her daughter had described. The tears Helena saved for moments when she thought no one was watching. You have no idea, Helena said, her voice breaking, how many times I wanted to call and tell you. By the time I found out I was pregnant, we'd already signed everything. You had already left with that anger all over your face, and I thought if I told you, you'd come back because you felt obligated. And I didn't want you out of obligation, Daniel. I wanted you because you loved me, and if there wasn't any love left, I would rather raise her alone than share her with a man who was always at the office, always promising tomorrow. Every word struck Daniel like a truth he had postponed for 10 years. He wasn't angry. He had no right to be angry, and he knew it. All he felt was an enormous sadness. And somehow, alongside it, gratitude. Gratitude that Helena had had that little girl, that she had raised a child with an angel's voice who knew things about getting lost and finding your way back. "She must be beautiful," Daniel said. "I've never seen her, but I know she is. You can hear it in her voice." Helena laughed through her tears. "She's the best thing I've ever done in my life," she said. "She's kind, smart, and just as stubborn as both of us. And she asks about her father, you know. Why she doesn't have a dad like the other kids. I never spoke badly about you to her. I promised myself I would never put my resentment on her shoulders. So I always told her that her father was a man who lost his way, but that he wasn't a bad man." Daniel had to sit down. His knees gave way, and he dropped onto the couch, the phone trembling in his hand. "You told her that?" he asked. "After everything, that's what you told her?" "I told her the truth," Helena replied simply. "You're not a bad man, Daniel. You're a man who lost his way. You always were. And I wasn't going to let the anger I felt toward you turn into poison in a child's heart. None of this was her fault." And there, listening to her, Daniel finally understood the worth of the woman he had let go. It was the quiet dignity of a woman who had been hurt and left alone, pregnant and abandoned, yet chose not to poison her daughter against an absent father. A woman who carried the entire burden without turning it into a weapon, who took a broken heart and somehow raised a whole good child from it. That was a kind of greatness Daniel, with all his money, his company, and his awards, had never come close to possessing. "Helena," he said, unable to hold back his tears anymore, "I'm sorry for not being there, for not fighting for us, for leaving you to carry all of this alone. I know I can't fix 10 years, but I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me, at whatever pace you want, whatever is best for her. I don't want to disrupt the life you've built. I don't want to be outside of it anymore." A long silence followed. Daniel waited, knowing her answer might be the most important one he would ever hear. He deserved a no. He was prepared for a no. He had made too many mistakes to demand anything else. "She turns 10 in March," Helena finally said slowly. "And every year for her birthday she asks for 2 things, always the same 2 things, a strawberry cake and to meet her father." Daniel covered his mouth with his hand. The whole room blurred before his eyes. "Every year I make her the strawberry cake," Helena continued, her voice breaking. "And every year I don't know what to do about the second wish. Every year I make up an excuse. And every year she pretends to believe me because she knows it hurts me and she doesn't want to hurt me. A 9-year-old girl protecting her mother. Can you believe that, Daniel?" He couldn't speak. He just cried silently in the empty living room that suddenly didn't feel quite so empty anymore. "Maybe this year," Helena said very softly, almost in a whisper, "she can have both." On the other side of the line, behind a door that hadn't quite closed all the way, a 9-year-old girl who had been listening quietly, the way children do, wrapped her little hands around her knee and smiled in the dark. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. She understood that Daniel, the man with the good voice, wasn't just anybody, and that maybe, just maybe, her second birthday wish was finally on its way. 10 years late, like all those beautiful things that take far too long to arrive but somehow still do, Daniel didn't sleep that night. He stayed awake until dawn, staring at the city lights, with the phone still warm in his hand. Before they ended the call, Helena had given him an address, Church Street, in a small town near the ocean, a flower shop, and a date. A Saturday in March, when a girl named Sofia would blow out 10 candles on a strawberry cake. Daniel arrived 2 days early. He couldn't wait. He rented a room in a small hotel across from the beach and walked through town, breathing in salt air and the scent of wet earth, so different from the concrete and glass he knew. 3 times he walked past the flower shop without finding the courage to go inside. Through the window he saw a woman with her hair pulled back arranging bouquets. His heart nearly stopped. Helena. Older. Calmer. There were faint lines at the corners of her eyes now, and somehow they only made her more beautiful. There was something gentle in the way she handled the flowers, and once again Daniel understood everything he had lost. The 3rd time he passed by, she saw him. They stared at each other through the glass, separated by a storefront window. In 10 years. Neither of them moved. Then Helena slowly gave him the slightest nod. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. "Permission." "Come in." Daniel entered. The bell above the door chimed, and the scent of flowers wrapped around him. "You're early," Helena said. "I couldn't wait," he admitted. She looked at him for a long time, studying the face she had once known so well, and that time had changed. There was exhaustion in it, regret, and something she had never seen 10 years before. Humility. The proud man she had left was no longer there. In his place stood someone who had learned, In the cruelest school there is, the school of loneliness, what actually matters. "She's at school," Helena said. "She'll be back at noon." She hesitated, then added more softly, "I haven't told her yet that you're her father. I thought we should decide together how to do it. She's just a child, Daniel. I don't want her to get hurt again." "Whatever you want," he said immediately. "Oh, whatever you think is best. I trust you. I should have always trusted you." Helena looked at him, and something in her expression softened. Maybe it was the beginning of forgiveness. Not all of it. That would take time. But perhaps the first seed. At noon, the flower shop door opened, and a little girl with braids and a school uniform came running in, tossing her backpack into a corner. "Mom, I got an A on my English test," she shouted before even looking around. Then she saw Daniel. She stopped. She stared at the strange man standing in the middle of her mother's shop. A girl with big, curious eyes. Helena's eyes. But the shape of her chin and the way she furrowed her brow were unmistakably his. Daniel looked at her face and felt his entire world rearrange itself. It was her. Sofia. The voice from the phone now had a body, a face, a reality. "Hi," the girl said cautiously. "Hi," Daniel answered, barely above a whisper. Sofia tilted her head and studied him. Then her eyes widened. "I know your voice," she said slowly. You're Daniel, from the phone, and the one with the good voice." Daniel couldn't answer. He only nodded, his eyes filling with tears. Sofia looked at her mother, and then at Daniel, then at her mother again. And children, who understand far more than adults ever give them credit for, began putting the pieces together in her own quiet way. The man her mother had known before she was born. The man who had lost his way. The man she'd asked for every birthday for 9 years. "Mom," Sofia said, without taking her eyes off Daniel, her voice suddenly very small and very serious. "Is it him?" Helena couldn't speak. She only covered her mouth with one hand and nodded as tears streamed down her face. Then the little girl did something Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't run into his arms like children do in movies. She walked slowly toward him with an almost adult seriousness. She stopped directly in front of him, looked up at the face that was somehow half hers, and asked, with the honesty only children have, "Did you come to stay? Or did you just come so you could leave again?" The question cut through him like a blade. Daniel knelt right there on the floor of the flower shop so they were eye to eye. He looked into those eyes, his and Helena's somehow blended together, and said the truest thing he had ever said in his life. "I came to stay. If you'll let me. I've lost a lot of time, Sofia. Too much time. But I don't want to lose another day. If you'll let me, I want to stay forever." Sofia studied him for a long moment, weighing those words with the strange, honest instinct children have, the instinct that tells them when an adult is lying and when they're telling the truth. And she knew he was telling the truth. She could hear it in his voice, the same good voice she had recognized over the phone. Then she stepped forward and hugged him. A tight little girl hug, her thin arms wrapped around his neck, her face buried against his shoulder, and Daniel hugged her back, holding that small body against him and feeling, for the first time in 10 years, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He cried. She cried. And Helena, standing behind the counter surrounded by flowers, cried too. But those tears were different from every tear she had shed alone over the past 9 years. For the first time, she had someone to share them with. Things weren't perfect after that. Real life never is. It took time for the three of them to find their way together. Daniel had to learn how to be a father to a girl who had already become almost entirely herself without him. What she liked, what frightened her. Her little habits, her way of seeing the world. Day after day, through small actions rather than grand promises, he had to prove that this time, tomorrow, really would come. He sold half his company. He scaled back the life he had built out of concrete and glass. He bought a house in that little town by the ocean, 3 blocks from the flower shop. And he learned what it was like to wake up to the smell of salt in the air. With Helena, things moved even more slowly. 10 years of hurt don't disappear because of one embrace. But love, when it's real, has a patience that urgency never did. There were dinners, conversations on the porch after Sofia had gone to sleep. Comfortable silences replacing the painful ones they had once known. There was Daniel proving, with constant presence rather than beautiful words, that the man who had come back was not the same man who had left. And one summer evening, beneath an orange sky over the ocean while Sofia ran along the sand, Helena finally let Daniel's hand find hers. And she didn't let go. On Sofia's 10th birthday, there was strawberry cake. And for the first time in her life, both of her birthday wishes came true on the same day. She blew out the candles surrounded by her mother and her father, and she didn't wish for anything else. There was nothing left to ask for. She already had everything. That night, after Sofia had fallen asleep, Helena stood watching her daughter sleep and cried again, the way she always had when she thought no one was looking. Except this time, someone was. Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind as they stood in the doorway of Sofia's room, both of them watching their daughter sleep. And he whispered into Helena's ear the only thing that made sense to say, "Thank you for never letting her hate me. Thank you for waiting, even when you didn't know you were waiting." Helena rested her head against his shoulder and answered softly so only he could hear. "We lost our way. But we came back to where we took the wrong turn." Outside, the ocean kept rolling onto the shore, patient as it had always been. And inside that little house, 3 people whom life had kept apart for 10 long years finally slept beneath the same roof, in the same silence. Except this time, it wasn't the silence of absence. It was the silence of being whole. Sometimes love doesn't arrive when we want it to. Sometimes it comes 10 years late by accident through a phone call that almost never happened and a little girl's voice that revealed what the pride of 2 adults had hidden for an entire decade. But when it comes, even late, even imperfectly, even after so much pain, it is still the closest thing to a miracle this world has to offer. And the little girl who once asked, "Did you come to stay?" never had to ask again.